Hi pals, it's me, Artie, they and pronouns only, and this video is going to get autistic again. I have finally finished filling in my autism assessment questionnaire form. A big part of that was having to go and look through my school reports and pick out teacher comments. So I thought it'd be funny to share the comments because obviously I didn't use all of the examples I found in my questionnaire, but I thought generally it would be funny but also I think it could be helpful for other people who are filling in this form and possibly even the ADHD form, because there's a few in here that I'm just like, that was really ADHD actually. So people who are filling in the autism questionnaires or possibly the ADHD questionnaires for diagnosis, it could be helpful to have some examples of what you're looking for. There's a few that are really typical, and then there's a selection that were very common and repeated through the years, so you'll see that. But then there's just some that were just like a little bit extra weird, you know? You're just like, what possessed my teacher to say this? I have most of my reports, but I am missing a few. But like, you don't need all of your reports, but it is useful to have like some through the years to kind of show it's like an ongoing and long-term thing that's been noticed or brought up. So yeah, in the year 2000, my own personal analysis of myself is that I developed a lot of artistic skills in sort of like a compensatory way for where I was lacking in other aspects. But also, like, I don't know, there's definitely something about going through my school reports that was strange, because I've known for a long time I'm dyslexic. So I definitely have got issues that are very specific to dyslexia. And I do feel like the way that I was treated and spoken to by teachers over the years gave me this perception that I was stupid. Basically, that I was just not good at school. So I, as an adult, have not really been able to relate to the gifted kid kind of thing. Like, I understood that, yeah, my scores have been like fine, but I was never like a gifted kid. And I don't know whether that's because I wasn't good at school, or whether that was just because of certain things that teachers said and focused on, like really focused on negatives and focused on where I need or should be improving, rather than really encouraging or emphasizing where I was good at other subjects. Yeah, so I think that's its own thing I need to unpack in therapy now. But like, yeah, generally I remember being made to feel much like Pandora, useless, where actually like I wasn't that bad in a lot of the subjects from reading through these reports anyway, and that if somebody was a bit more encouraging about the other things that weren't just the artistic stuff, then truly who knows where I would be right now. I could have been a fucking scientist. Especially seeing as, sorry, it's literally hammering it down, so you might have some ASMR rain in the background. Especially seeing as my brain does seem to Jesus Christ. Especially as my brain now seems to have like a reasonably good ability to understand and adapt to biological science stuff. Whilst I'm definitely too squeamish to have been a doctor or a nurse or anything like that, I think I could have been a researcher of some kind, because I do feel like a lot of my thoughts and ideas of like, well, what could be the cause or the link between these conditions are things that aren't really thought about that much. It's just getting heavier. There you go. That's literally... Hello? So yeah, I think reading these reports brings up a lot of emotions for me. I definitely cried a few times when I was going through them, because I was like, look, my reports say I was good at maths and science. What happened? What happened? I don't know. I think one of the things that happened is that the uninteresting stuff is forced upon me And that's definitely also a pattern I noticed whilst looking at these reports. But yeah, anyway, a lot of comments about my artwork and stuff, always about how detailed and full of character things were. This was my 2000s, the school year ending in the year 2000s, like my first proper school year, I think, reception. My religious education teacher said that I am developing an awareness of the feelings of others, which feels like a strange comment to make. There are also comments I tend to remain with a small group of friends and I need to develop the confidence to ask questions in class. That's one that comes up a lot. That comes up a lot, babe. So then the year that ends 2001, English says I lack concentration at times. Unless encouraged, they rarely speak in class, which is also really common. So yeah, lacks concentration at times. It also said that I responded well to praise and encouragement, so I feel like they definitely didn't continue that through my schooling. It also then said that I'm able to concentrate for silent reading, which is very ADHD, autistic, auditory processing problems. My maths teacher said I can produce good work when I concentrate fully. So some more ADHD things. Answers well, like speaking, but I need to pick up the pace of my work. That's another thing. I took longer than everybody else to do the work. They often weren't specific in these like bits of feedback as to why or like what it was. So like I feel like the problem we are having is that the teachers are not asking me directly a lot of the time, or initiating a conversation about my needs as a student. In science, accurate drawings, sensible approach to practical work. There are so many comments from teachers that really make me sound very old. So yeah, sensible approach to practical work sounds very autistic. Wise old person energy. Design technology, appreciates the value of careful workmanship. That was another one. They could have been talking about my granddad in that sentence, because like he used to be a furniture finisher, so he used to like polish the furniture to make it look really nice. So I found that really funny because it just makes me sound really old. In history, it said that I liked the museum trip, which is also one of the things on, I think, the AQ50 is whether you prefer theatre or museums. I'm like, well, as long as I can deal with the noise, both is fine. I like both. Geography said that I produce careful artwork linked to the topics. Art says tries hard with all aspects of art and can produce delicate and detailed drawings. PE interprets the music well in dance lessons and puts a lot of concentration into gym and floor work. So we see quite early on that I liked gymnastics and dance, which is interesting. Didn't really think that that was a long-term thing. I used to do gymnastics when I was young. I don't remember why I stopped. I think the people I liked, I didn't like many of the people there, but I think the people I did like left, so that happened quite a lot for a lot of my outside school hobbies. In citizenship, I enjoy listening to other people's views, but reluctant to participate in discussions. That's also a common one. I don't really like to participate, and that literally continues through secondary school as well. And then like this was a weird thing. I don't know whether it was just what everyone has talked about or if it was specific to me, but we have talked about how friendships are made and broken and how arguments can be avoided. And then a general comment from like the head teacher, at times lacks concentration, takes care when illustrating their work. Then we're on to the school year ending in 2002. I was at school, so like the end of the school year was the year that I was in. So 2002, I was in year 2. Reading and comprehension, oh, that was so ironic. Reading and comprehension not up to par. That was my own writing. That was my own comment. Damn, got me. But my maths was good. English comments showing more confidence talking and listening, particularly when topics interest them. The ADHD autism still. Where there are inaccuracies in spelling, the alternative that I come up with is They've put sometimes, but when in one of my dyslexia assessments, they said that my spelling, even if it was incorrect, was usually like the logical spelling for things. So yeah, they say it's sometimes phonetically plausible. I think that that's a bit autistic, if you ask me. I feel like that's my autism trying to compensate for where my dyslexia struggles were. That just like, this is one of the reasons why I have an interest in language and communication, particularly English, because what the fuck is this language? This language is so bizarre. The rules don't make sense. The rules are not consistent, which annoys me as an autistic person. So like, especially when I was still trying to learn how to spell words, like my autistic logical brain was compensating by making sense with a phonetic spelling, which is why the whole try to sound things out doesn't work with me, because to me, trying to sound things out phonetically usually means that's not right. I don't know how to explain that better, but like, yeah, like it's rare for me to be able to learn a new word by slowly enunciating each section, particularly if it's a very new word to me, or a more complicated word, or a word that has like its origins in other languages that I don't particularly have a lot of familiarity with. So like, I have gotten used to medical pronunciations, even though lots of people pronounce things so differently anyway, that I've gotten used to words that have like maybe a Latin or a Greek origin, but that's only specific to medications, not to other words, or not, you know, medications and health conditions, stuff like that. But it doesn't translate to other words really. Right, so in IT, can use computer graphics to create a picture, has asked questions in different ways to find things out. DT, design technology, created a working model and a hand puppet that matches design intention, added features to both to capture particular characteristics and expressions, usually recognizes what they have done well as well. Oh, same, mental illness. Usually recognizes what they have done well as their work progresses and things they could do better on in future. In music, here's another thing that I didn't realise was quite so long lasting, but enjoys singing and is always enthusiastic about taking part, which I would now consider singing like an autistic stim, which as well I think Laurel, the streamer, feels similarly about singing. Citizenship, again, recognises what they like and dislike, and clearly recognises what is fair and unfair. Sounds autistic. Can share opinions on things that matter to them and can usually explain views. General feedback was quiet and sensitive member of the class. That also comes up a lot. Quiet, sensitive, polite. Works slowly, often produces lovely work, and a pleasure to teach. There's a lot of a pleasure to teachers, to be honest. Then yeah, the 2003, we had a letter, it was a letter separate from my report I found, but basically it said that they drafted a special needs timetable for next year and have put in place additional support, given extra help to access the work in the classroom. So then my actual report of that year, DT says, gained great pleasure from their work. Music, participated with enjoyment in singing activities. Art, has enjoyed art this year and made great progress. And then the general comments, more confidence in own ability, must persevere with more difficult tasks, is quiet, unselfish manner and helpful member of the class. I'm not really sure what that means, but okay. Then 2004, year 4, my results were showing that I was below expected in reading and in maths, but very low in writing. The school report says literacy, becoming more confident when talking to the rest of the class about things that interest them, but will not offer ideas freely unless prompted. Enjoys writing enjoys writing stories and illustrating them. So apparently I've always enjoyed writing stories as well. Didn't realise that that was also a long time thing either. In maths, works well both alone and in small groups where they are able to contribute some ideas. ICT likes to work independently. There's a lot of reference to I prefer to work independently, or I'm better working independently or in small groups but can work in groups, which I think is also relatively indicative of autism. RE is prepared to listen to the views of others, but their written work does not always reflect their depth of understanding. History can use sources of information in ways that go beyond simple observations to answer questions about the past. Art works confidently with a wide range of materials, excellent eye for detail. Made excellent progress this year and is a talented artist and should be encouraged. Don't worry, love, I've somehow circled back round to my first passion in life, which was art, and now I am trying to make it a business. Check out my Depop. Continuing, citizenship responds in a mature way when talking about aspects of growing up. So I'm assuming they are talking about puberty. I have always been someone who doesn't find that kind of humour funny, and I find it kind of boring, and yeah, like I don't really know how else to further explain that, but I just don't find, like, sometimes a little bit here or there, particularly like funny jokes, like clever jokes about sex stuff or whatever, fine, but like I don't really get it with the general culture around that kind of humour. Never really been that kind of person, clearly. General feedback, quiet. Takes longer than others to complete work. Seems to prefer to work on an individual basis rather than in a group. Thank you. To work on their social interactions with others in the class. Then I also made my own note this year as well, is that my dog died that year, which was my dog Prince, the first dog I've ever had. He lived until like 17 and a half years old. So like he'd been a family pet for a really long time, and I think I was about 6 or 7 when he died. So like he's all I knew in my life at that point, really. And that was a really hard time for everybody in my family, because he was definitely a very, God, talking about my fucking dogs makes me cry. Do non-autistic people talk about animals they've had and not cry? Because I don't know how to not cry about my dead dogs, you know? He was a very bizarre but amazing aspect of our family. He used to take himself on walks around the block. We used to live in Hove. He used to literally take himself for a walk. He was very protective over me when I was a baby. And he literally just let me do the most ridiculous things to him. We have so many photos of him, like where I've dressed him up in doll's clothes and stuff, and he literally just took it. He was the most amazing, well-mannered, well-tempered dog. So yeah, that was like, and I'm an only child as well, so like I didn't have other siblings around. He was basically the sibling. So like that was hard on all of us at that point in time. There's also, so like yeah, there were a lot of issues around that in school as well. And I also made another note here that I was losing out on lunchtime at this point because I was struggling with my spelling. I found a letter from school to my mum, which obviously had come as a response from my mum sending a letter. My mum's iconic. My mum was such an iconic parent of a unknowingly disabled school child in the early 2000s. Like, truly, I don't know anyone who tried hard or had to try harder than her, and did try harder than her. She literally went above and beyond for me, and still does. I remember being really upset about it, because basically the school decided it was a good idea for like all of the kids who were struggling with spelling, that they would get extra help in lunchtime, so you would lose out on lunchtime. And like, something I've learned more and more as an adult, especially when it comes to ADHD, autism, but also just generally cognitively, you need adequate breaks from school and work to be able to like do your job or do your schoolwork well. So like, removing some of a kid's lunch break to continue trying to like force them to be better at something that they already really struggle with. So like, clearly, like, I'm not here. Like, that felt like a punishment to me, and it felt like detention. And I remember this also being a thing with exams. I had extra time eventually after, I think, 3 dyslexia tests and my mum harassing the school. I had extra time in exams, but that meant everyone else got out and got into like lunch break and stuff before I did. I had to sit in this exam hall for an extra 15 minutes when I had nothing more to say or write in these exams. It didn't feel helpful as a small child, and whilst it was more helpful in GCSE time, I personally just see no point in the way that they did a lot of these things, and they feel really illogical to me, which I think further added to me not liking school and not liking learning certain things, because rather than it being like, hey, we're going to try and help you, it felt more like I was being punished for things. Yeah, and I don't know, I feel like there is definitely like a lack of understanding of like what it feels like to have a combination of autism, ADHD, and like a type of learning disability as well, like dyslexia or dyscalculia and things like that. Because I have spoken to some autistic people in the last few years who don't have that experience of being dyslexic and knowing it, but not knowing you were autistic and ADHD. And like, they said, oh, well, that's why you got help in school then, is because you had dyslexia and people know more about dyslexia. And it's like, well, I didn't though. A lot of the help I was given was not useful to me in any way. And a lot of the things I was given through DSA, Disabled Students Allowance for university, were not helpful. And actually they were more of a hindrance if I tried to use them. Yeah, so on to year 5. Literacy, struggling with exams. I didn't fill in half of the questions even with extra time. That also then starts coming up more and more, is that I don't answer questions in full. Or I just skip questions and don't even try to answer a lot of them. Maths works very well when they have the support they need to encourage them. So they understood it in maths, but why, like, these were all as well, like, for a lot of that, like a lot of primary schools at that time in the UK, it was the same teacher teaching all of the lessons. So it feels really strange to me how different some of the feedback was. Like, you're the same teacher and you're writing about me as if you were completely different people. Like, why aren't you putting 2 and 2 together from other feedback you've given about me in different subjects? Continued with maths as well. Most questions I tackled, I get right, but I missed out many in both papers because I could not see what method to use. That's another thing as well. I find it quite difficult to know how to tackle certain questions sometimes if it's not obvious, like, what method to use. So that makes sense to me. In science, listens with interest and records their work slowly but very carefully in graphs and tables. So again, the art stuff coming in with science. Takes great pride in diagrams they draw. I was pleased with their recall of facts as well. So yeah, a lot of those things just feel very generalised neurodivergent, you know. Geography, they record their work carefully and methodically. History, illustrations, supporting written work are always of a high standard. Well, it's like, I think I started to learn that when I did good drawings, people would compliment me on something at least. So I would spend more time on the drawings. DT worked with enthusiasm, has shown great determination to succeed in the tasks set, able to work sensibly, pays attention to detail. So, like, you know, like, it says there that I work with enthusiasm and I show great determination to succeed, which isn't the same comment across other subjects. And it's like, okay, maybe ask why my attitude is different in that class and not versus other classes. I think a lot of it is that I definitely had a preference for practical work, anything that really involved doing rather than just talking and writing, because my writing wasn't great, so I really struggled with the writing aspect of things. Art, highly positive, high standard work. Music, responds well to music, sings well in song assembly. I also went to a Church of England primary school, by the way. General feedback, has gained confidence and is happy to talk to the whole class about things that are important to them, like their dogs, because then I got 2 dogs after Prince died, who were Brandy and Sparky, so I had another dog hyperfixation. I had some more dog siblings. Look so much happier, and this is partly because they have made friends. You were here like 20 minutes ago, right, when I said that I usually stick to the same small group of friends? There were also comments I tend to remain with a small group of friends. When did I not have friends? Like, I definitely didn't like much of my class because they bullied me. But my school definitely had a few immigrant children that would join in different years who I remember being very like close friends with. So like, yeah, when we had a new student who was from a different country and maybe didn't speak, this is funny because I don't know, I tend to definitely have a draw to people whose first language isn't English. I have some theories on what it is, but yeah. So like I remember one year there was a girl who came from Brazil. We were very close that year. She left quite soon after. There were a couple of other kids as well who moved here from different countries and started school. I would be quite close friends with them. But yeah, like I said, they're so vague in their feedback that you're not really sure who or what they're referring to a lot of the time. This one's really funny. I thought this was really funny. Still finds any criticism, however mild, very hard to accept, even if it concerns the school rules. And my immediate response reading that was like, well, the school rules were probably stupid. Sorry, not sorry. Because again, they don't mention what. They don't mention what at all. This is never mentioned ever again anywhere else. I feel like as an autistic person, I do tend to follow rules majority of the time. However, if they don't make sense to me, I'm not going to follow the rules. But also, this was a year where I remember this teacher and I didn't like her. She used to tell my mum that I used to give her, like, if I was having a bad day, I would give her this look that was basically a death glare, and she always knew it was going to be a bad day if I gave her that look, where I'd just be like, so thank you, autistic bitch face. So yeah, I don't know why I didn't like that teacher, but I just definitely did not like that teacher. I think she also had a reputation generally in school that she was not a very like kind or relaxed teacher. So and then year 6 I don't have. It's probably somewhere else. So it goes on to year 7. There was a self-report in this one where I was giving feedback, which I think is good. We need more like self-reports from parents and children, to be honest, about how they feel about school and subjects, because it was like, this is the thing that I feel like was missing from a lot of the other feedback that happened. Is that no one really asked me. No one asked me. So yeah, in my self-report, I said that English was interesting and easy when the class is quiet. In my secondary school, for the first, I think, 3 years, my form group, who were then also my class for other subjects, were a very loud group. We were well known for being loud, annoying, hard to control, and I think we may have set a few teachers off into mental breakdowns at some points. But it was also a difficult class to be in when you preferred not necessarily silence, but like quiet to do work or to listen in class, because there was always somebody talking. For maths, I just wrote, I'm good at it. And then in science, I wasn't doing as well, and my response was, I've been sat where I can't see the board. Like, what the fuck? I think as well, the secondary school reports weren't at the end of the year, they were sort of autumn, wintry time, because a lot of them were talking about mock exams in, I think, my year 9 reports. I think there were sort of reports to be like, hey, here are some things that can be improved on to achieve a better grade by the end of the year, for example, rather than at the end of the year you find out what you've not managed to do very well and you just kind of have to try and hope for the best for the next year. And then in French, my comment was, the teacher won't let us speak to her. And I remember that teacher, and nobody liked her. Nobody liked her. She was not a great teacher, to be honest. Our class definitely did not get on with her. I did get awards though as well for achievement and effort in German. My top scores that year as well were English, maths, science, art, drama, German, ICT and music. English, they said that I was quiet and serious, tries hard to express themselves originally. Maths has been a delight to teach. Got another one, lads. Reluctant to offer responses to class questions or ask for help. So it carries on through school. Art, they should try to answer questions about artists in full sentences. And I put in brackets, that's when art became academic. So I started to lose interest in art in school. Like I remember I continued to draw a lot in secondary school and in college before I went to university. Because I loved to draw and that was sort of my main mode of expressing my feelings and stuff like that, because I struggled with words. Yeah, I was starting to lose interest in art in secondary school because it was now more about the academic analysing art and talking about artists and their work rather than just doing work. It was less practical. Or like there were practical aspects of it that I was still doing really well in, but I was not doing well in the academic side of things because I just didn't fucking care, my guy. I still don't care. DT, it is refreshing to see pupils bringing in extra ingredients to move the basic recipe forward, which I just think is funny that I was extra. I just did extra things when I was enjoying doing stuff. I used to and still sometimes do make food or bake things with family. So like whilst I genuinely just hate cooking to feed myself every day, I have had some enjoyment from cooking and baking at times. Drama, starting to use movement and gesture and voice effectively to portray character, although this is often a stereotype, which I think is really interesting because by this point I'd been in drama classes already as like an outside of school thing for several years. But I do think it's funny that they said that my portrayal is stereotypical. I think that feels very autistic to me. French, they said that I was a pleasant pupil. German, focuses well during lesson, a quiet pupil. History, works quietly, skipped questions or half answered on exams. ICT, quiet. RE, pleasure to teach, doesn't contribute much in class, needs prompting or encouragement. So that was my first year of secondary school. My next year of secondary school, year 8. Maths, pleasure to teach. Science, lose concentration quickly, needs to try to maintain eye contact with the teacher to keep focused / not get so distracted. Can have problems following instructions. So like one of the things I have issues with is I have had these issues for quite a while, and it was obvious in primary school, but I can't copy notes from a board. I lose my place so much, and that's part of another reason why I'm very slow when it comes to a lot of work. So like one of the things I was like, look, this is the one thing that will help me is printing out what's on the fucking board, or what will be on the board. So I can add notes to it if I need to, but I will also just have all the right information. My mum said that she would read my schoolwork and be like, this makes no sense. But also, how do you make eye contact with a teacher who's not like looking at you anyway? Do they just mean that I need to always look at the teacher? Because that doesn't make any sense. I feel like my response to that is autistic, but also is very much like, needs to maintain eye contact. Oh, autism. Tricky, focus, ADHD. And yeah, I do have problems following instructions. I need to have them written down, but also verbally said. It's a confusing one. Art, excellent technical skills, can manipulate materials and processes to communicate ideas and meanings. DT, able to problem solve. Drama, independent study in and out of class, demonstrated well-researched content. French, reluctant to share ideas with the class even though they are usually correct. German, good at retaining vocabulary and speaking in German. Very impressive exam score in reading, but writing was very low, a little disappointing. So even in other languages. So that was the end of year 8. Year 9, science, pleasant and polite, art. So my note on here was that my score severely dropped in like what I was like. We had these score sheets of the kinds of participation. So like independent study in class, or homework, contributing in class, you know, things like that. The first couple of years my scores were really good. They were like almost always for everything, but they really dropped down from like almost always to sometimes for basically literally everything. So it shows that I really changed in class at this point. Something that I talked about with a friend of mine recently when I was going through these things as well was about this, and it seems to be quite common that for a lot of ADHD autistic kids, whether they're diagnosed or not, start having a lot more noticeable problems and shifts when they have started or gone through puberty. So I think that, yeah, year 9 was a really good example of like the hormones affecting those neurological things going on, which is why like a lot of people who have periods notice that their ADHD medication sometimes doesn't work at all at certain parts of the month due to those hormonal fluctuations. So yeah, I think a lot of things you start seeing is that happening, but also just the general impact of just feeling like nothing I did was enough or good enough generally. But yeah, even though all of my scores dropped in art, I was still recommended to do an art GCSE, and like I remember finding this teacher dull and annoying. I think that also often impacted what my grades and what I was like in class, because if I didn't get on with the teacher, I wasn't going to be the best student. I was also recommended for a drama GCSE. They said that they would like to see me taking on a more directorial role in lessons, which I thought was interesting as well, seeing as a lot of autistic girls anyway, these like in semi-recent studies have shown that a lot of autistic girls direct more than they play. So I just thought that was an interesting comment to have been given, is they wanted to see me take on a more directorial role because I was showing that I had like an eye for that sort of thing. In German, I'd begun to participate less and less, and I loved German, but yeah, I did start participating less and less. I did start participating more again in GCSEs, which is because I took on German as a GCSE. Well, I was put in the bottom set instead, so I was in the class of people who like weren't that good at German, but I was still doing the higher exam papers and stuff like that. And for the most part, the teacher I had there was a different teacher to the one I'd had before. She would kind of just let me and a couple of my friends who were doing the higher exam stuff just kind of do what we wanted, and that was like a common thing that happened a lot in a lot of my subjects, is that when I was dropped down in a lot of subjects to like a lower level, I was often still doing higher papers, but I would just sort of be left to do what I felt like doing with a couple of my friends, and that's sort of how I learned. So I do appreciate that that's that's the way that some of the teachers decided to help me, basically, was just being a bit more relaxed about some of the rules with things and relaxed about the type of participation I had. ICT, they said, pleasant and delightful, pleasure to teach. RE can be an enthusiastic student when a subject is especially pertinent to them. So yeah, that's a regular one as well, is that in subjects where I wasn't that interested in participating, they noticed that I would participate more if I was interested in the subjects. Oh, I do have a bit of year 10 as well here, actually. My English grades really improved. Absolute pleasure to teach is the quote from my English teacher for GCSE. I got an F in the RE practice exam. This was the other thing I was talking about with my therapist recently, but I've talked about it numerous times before. So I never revised, because I personally feel like if you were not a good enough teacher to teach me well the first time, then that's on you, not on me. I'm not going to spend more time outside of school learning things or like trying to teach myself things, you know? Like, to me, if I didn't get it the first time and you expect me to teach it to myself when I couldn't get it in class with an actual qualified teacher, that makes no sense to me. Once again, like, it makes no sense to me why people expected revision to help. So I didn't revise. But also, mock exams didn't make any sense, so I didn't try. I hate exams. I've never liked exams of any kind, and I basically just didn't try in mock exams because they were not real exams. They were fake exams, so I didn't try. So I got really bad marks in a lot of my mock exams. But by the time my actual GCSE exams came round, I surprised a few people. And then, yeah, like the one note I put on here from PE in school was year 10, because it was a really long paragraph. It was really odd. But they said, polite and respectful pupil who never complains and completes any task or activities that are asked of them in what is a challenging group, because also my PE group during like GCSE years, we were the ones who weren't doing GCSE PE, but we were the ones still forced to do PE, just generally once or twice a week, I don't remember. But we were also the lower mixed group. So again, we weren't very good at PE. We weren't like the sporty people. We were mostly just the people who were nerds or troublemakers, basically. In what is a challenging group, a mature approach and first-class attitude such as this is extremely well received by staff. So, but also what they didn't realise is I had an eating disorder, so I used PE in an eating disordered way. So, not sure how to feel about that feedback, to be honest, for many reasons. But yeah, so those are my majority of the feedback and responses I got from teachers over the years. Mainly the ones, yeah, like I said, pertinent to my autism assessment, but also with a little sprinkle of ADHD and a little sprinkle of what the fuck. So yeah, I hope for one, it's relatable to kind of laugh at these things. You definitely don't need as many as I have. A lot of people don't have any of their school records. Hopefully you can still get what you need from your autism assessment. We are just hoarders and I'm an only child, so let me know if you were also a pleasure to have in class. But I also think it's really funny, I've been saying this a lot recently as well after reading all of these, is that most of my teachers over all of those years was like, doesn't speak enough, doesn't like contribute in class, doesn't join in group discussions. For one, it's because my bullies were in the same class. Do you think I wanted to give them more reasons to bully me? No. But also, you've now you unleashed something that started in secondary school and just continued to get worse, and look where I am now. I don't shut the fuck up. I spend hours a week just speaking to a camera about things that interest me. But also, you know, frustrating looking at all of those and being like, right, so these are the really typical responses that a lot of ADHD autistic people get in school. And nobody thought, hey, we've been having a lot of problems with this one. We've been having a lot of problems with this one and their family. They keep coming, complaining about this, that, and the other because we're being assholes to them for no reason. So, maybe maybe it's the autism, maybe it's ADHD. But yeah, that is a big can of worms that I would basically recommend people not bother getting into unless they really need a moment to process the things that happened and mourn some of that stuff, because there's a whole other life that I could have had if it had been spotted sooner, both positively and negatively. We can't change what has happened. All we can do now is try to move forward with the knowledge we have now and kind of continue to take care of the child selves who weren't paid enough attention to, basically, by their teachers. But yeah, also, like I said, the years that I was in school was basically 1999 to 2013. Yeah, 2013 is when I finished college before I went to university a couple of years after that. So yeah, like the early 2000s and the 2010s was not exactly peak understanding of autism and ADHD. That's kind of like now is when things are getting understood a lot more. It was so unlikely to be caught during those years, you know, and all you can do is just kind of try and work with the parts of you that are still hurt from those things, you know? I don't know if that made any sense. I keep getting distracted. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, watch the videos, and share my videos. All of it really helps the algorithm. Let me know in the comments if you've had similar experiences, if you've had similar feedback from school. Anybody else going through the autism assessment stuff right now, let me know. Let's complain about it. Let's just like have some like solidarity here. Also, I made that video a little while ago going through the questions I had to answer, which a lot of people liked and thought was kind of funny. Still trying to reach partner, 1,000 subscribers minimum, 4,000 watch hours. So yeah, watching, checking out any of my videos, let me know those sorts of things, and sharing my work is all really helpful in that regard. And that's all I have for this week. I'll see you next week. Bye.